If you like these audiobooks and you'd like to support me directly, please check out my Ko-fi link in the description below. Chapter 15. The center was indeed not far from the station, but the road was hilly, and by the time Kaudu arrived he was drenched in sweat again. He stood in front of an old-fashioned building behind an embassy and compared the address to what he'd written down. No mistake. The 4th and 5th floors of this building held the laboratory maintaining the loop data. Kaudu took the elevator to the 4th floor, where he asked the receptionist to page a Mr. Amano. This was the name Hideyuki had given him. When you get to the lab, have them page a guy named Amano. I'll let him know you're coming. Hideyuki had stressed this step a number of times. The woman at the desk picked up her intercom receiver. There's a Mr. Kaudu Futami to see you, sir. Then she smiled at Kaudu and indicated a couch in the hall. He'll be with you in a few moments. Kaudu had a seat and waited for Amano to show up. While he waited, he surveyed the place, taking in the fact that this was where his father had worked before Kaudu was born. Had he walked past his very reception desk every morning on his way to his lab? Sorry to keep you waiting. The voice came from a completely unexpected direction. Kaudu had been expecting Amano to appear from the main section of the floor, behind the receptionist, but instead he approached Kaudu from the elevator landing. Kaudu stood and bowed slightly. Pleased to meet you. I'm Kaudu Futami. My father's always saying how much in your debt he is. Not at all, not at all. I'm in his debt, actually. Amano took a business card from his card case and handed it to Kaudu. As a mere medical student, Kaudu, of course, didn't carry business cards, so he had to take Amano's without offering one in return. Beneath the name of the research center was the man's title, Professor of Medicine, and his name, Toru Amano. Kaudu was puzzled to find a medical professor in what seemed to be a computer research center. But come to think of it, his own father had a medical background. Perhaps it wasn't so surprising after all. What's your specialty, if I might ask? Amano smiled, showing the dimples in his cheeks. Microbiology. He was a small, slender man. He'd been junior to Kaudu's father by 2 years, so he had to be in his late 40s, but he certainly didn't look that old. He could have easily passed for mid-30s. Well, I know you must be busy, so... It's nothing. Why don't I show you around? Amano guided Kaudu to the elevator and pushed the up button. The upper floor had a similar reception area. Amano led Kaudu past it without stopping. He brought him to a large private room. 2 walls were filled entirely with books, and several computers sat on the desk. Amano sank into his chair, motioning Kaudu toward the chair for guests. I'm told you'd like a detailed explanation of Dr. Hideyuki Futami's research. That's correct? How is he, by the way? How's his health holding up? It didn't appear that Amano was just asking to be polite. He seemed sincerely worried. If it was proven that the cancer had spread to Hideyuki's lungs, the situation would be essentially hopeless, but Kaudu glossed over that. About as well as can be expected. He taught me quite a lot, you know. Amano got a look of nostalgia on his face and continued. Things have changed these last few years. It's gotten quiet. Kaudu assumed he meant the research center. Now that he's thought about it, he hadn't seen anybody here besides the receptionist and Amano. He suspected the reason had something to do with the virus. My father told me that many of you who participated in the loop research have died of cancer. Very many indeed. Is there a specific reason? Well, I don't believe there's been any statement to that effect. Kaudu couldn't believe it was a mere coincidence, though, and if some kind of cause and effect relationship could be established, it would be epical. It might lead to the discovery of a new way of treating viral cancer. Do you know where the first victim was discovered? As a microbiologist, Amano should know a lot about that sort of thing. It's been hard to get exact data, because it's hard to distinguish it from previous varieties of cancer. But the MHC virus was first discovered in an American patient. Kaudu had heard rumors to that effect, that America had been the birthplace of the disease. Where in America? The victim was a computer technician living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Amano frowned, as if he'd just noticed the curious commonality. The MHC virus had been first discovered in the body of a computer technician. The infection rate among researchers at this facility, a computer research center, was much higher than average. Of course, it wasn't totally beyond the realm of coincidence, but... Amano's frown only lasted an instant. The coincidence struck him, but he immediately decided it wasn't worth assigning a special explanation to, and so he erased the frown. And then he stood up quickly, as if in confirmation of what Kaudu guessed to be his thought process. Oh, yes. There's an old videotape you might like to take a look at. A videotape? Kaudu felt himself tense up. He didn't know why. It's something Futami-sensei's staff put together, a sort of introduction to their research aims and methods. Part of their job was to elicit budgetary contributions from various sources. The video was just a promotional tool, but it's the best and quickest explanation of the purpose behind the loop. Amano went through the door first, urging Kaudu to follow. This way, please. The hallway snaked through several turns as it led through the complex of laboratories. Finally, Amano showed Kaudu into what looked like a reception room. It had a table and sofas. There were no windows. The room had to be in the middle of the building. The furnishings put Kaudu in mind of an art gallery. Framed pictures adorned the walls. What was strange was that there was exactly one picture on each wall, at exactly the same height, at exactly the same distance from the corners, in exactly the same size frame, as if they were icons hung to keep away evil spirits or something. Each frame contained a modernist painting incorporating photography. Kaudu's eyes were riveted to the pictures. They seemed to have captured in photographs some rectangular piece of modern art from four sides and then distorted it. As he looked around the room, he got the feeling that he was inside some kind of angular construction. Modern art objects usually gave a cold, hard impression. And what about the aesthetic sense that had placed, not the object itself, but pictures of it at the same point on all four walls? It was as if the fact that there were pictures was emphasizing a certain obsessiveness. Kaudu looked closely at one of the pictures to see if he could make out the name of the artist. There was a signature, a foreign name, but it was hard to make out. A C ... and an Elliot ... Please, have a seat. At the sound of Amano's voice behind him, Kaudu remembered where he was. He sat on the couch to which Amano was pointing, and noticed a 32-inch television facing him. Amano must have pulled it out of the cabinet while he wasn't looking. Amano opened another cabinet and took out a videotape. The tape had a label on its spine, and the label had a title written on it in large characters. Loop. There was no way he could miss it.